Good evening. I'm Steve Rabinowitz. And the last time we did this show, I was a lot happier of a sports fan. I guess we'll do a championship edition of On the Sports Lines. I guess. Introduce yourself, gentlemen.
Last time you also had a lot more hair, Rabbi. I'm Jay Kaplan.
Last time, by the way, I'm Anthony Strait. Last time, I had a reason to watch hockey because I was an enthusiastic fan. Now I'm just playing the role of spectator because you guys are forced me to watch the final series. I want no part.
It's a series. It's a series, for God's sakes. Get over yourself. Like you thought you wouldn't have to worry this long. Anyway, welcome to On the Sports Lines. We have a lot to talk about. We have a trophy checklist. Larry O'Brien trophy? Check. NBA Finals talk? Check. Chalice of Lord Stanley? Check on that as well. And the latest playoff loser in New York trophy? It's not a real trophy right now, but regrettable talk. We'll talk Rangers as well. But now, for our opener, let's talk golf. And while the 122nd version, Jesus Christ, that's almost as old as Jay, of the U.S. Open starts this week, the talk is about something else golf-related, as last week started the beginning of the LIV Tour over in England. The LIV Tour is a Saudi-backed 8-event PGA Tour alternative, and there are a lot of other things. They play individually, they play in teams. I didn't research that, I don't care. And considering the word alternative is used correctly because the PGA decided to suspend all of those people who decided to play in this thing because they were different majors. Major champions like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, Louis Oosthuizen, Bryson DeChambeau, and Patrick Reed, all gone from PGA Tour regular events, but they can compete at the majors, and they're all competing at Brookline this week. But this is the story, especially with no Tiger Woods playing over in the U.S. Open. Maybe they would like that to happen to get a little bit of a distraction off of this. But why are these players leaving? Let's examine. But in the words of the famous poet and rapper from St. Louis by the name of Nelly, Jay, hey, must be the money.
Yeah, and guys, I might get a little all over the place with my musings on this thing, but I mean,
When do you not?
Well, fair point, but I've read too much of this. Let's be real here, guys. Phil Mickelson, and Lefty is the primary culprit here, can talk all he wants about doing this to break what he feels is the PGA Tour's unfair stranglehold on the sport, but this is all about ego and money. Ego, because Mickelson wants to be the headliner in the spotlight at every tournament, something that wasn't likely to happen at the rate things were going for him on the PGA Tour. And money, because he also wanted to get paid like the golfer he used to be, no matter the source of that money. Make no mistake, the Saudis are using this 54 golf to try and sports wash just how bad a state actor they are when it comes to things like, repressing women and killing journalists. Look, some of the others that have already confirmed or are expected to confirm that they're joining the 54 tour, Dustin Johnson, number 3 on the PGA's all-time winning list. Bryson DeChambeau, the 2020 U.S. Open champ, Patrick Reed, who won the Masters in 2018, Ricky Fowler, and 2-time Masters champion Bubba Watson. While these guys are all well-known names, they haven't won much of late on the PGA Tour, so the only reason I can see for them jumping off the PGA ship is they can make an enormous amount of money just by coming over to 54, especially when you consider that everyone makes the cut at 54 at their events. Even the last place finisher takes home 120 grand. As for the PGA indefinitely suspending 17 players, including Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and Sergio Garcia, among others, for playing in 54 Golf's first event last week, which coincided with the RBC Canadian Open, I can understand their point, especially regarding Phil, due to his recent behavior and comments, which could be seen as falling under conduct unbecoming. But overall, it's not a great look, as it has some of the media calling the tour and Commissioner Jay Monahan vindictive. But as USGA CEO Mike Wan said, and here's the quote, he could foresee a day when the governing body would make it increasingly difficult for players suspended by the PGA Tour for competing in 54 Golf Invitational Series events to also be part of majors, including the U.S. Open, which starts Thursday in Brookline, Massachusetts. The first 54 golf tournament in the United States begins June 30th at Pumpkin Ridge in Portland, Oregon. Mickelson said he plans to play at the U.S. Open as the PGA Tour's authority to suspend players doesn't extend to the 4 majors, and they can't stop him from doing so. And I can see the U.S. Open not wanting to make waves by preventing Lefty from teeing up. But for as long as he's playing, the main storyline is going to be about the drama he's causing. Golf Channel commentator Brandel Chambly did not hold back his thoughts on this. And here's the quote. You talk about a rant, here it goes. He's suffering the consequences of a decision he made that some believe he was taking a flamethrower to the PGA Tour. By my count, there were 22 questions on Monday, and not a single question about being the oldest major champion of all time, not a single question about trying to complete the career Grand Slam. It was all about his decision to join a league that I think many view as an attempt at a hostile takeover, end quote. Yeah. He also went on to advocate for Mickelson and Greg Norman, who is the Saudi's face of 54 golf, being removed from the Hall of Fame, saying, here's the quote, they've dishonored the game and they threaten to destroy the game that they have both so enormously profited from. Now, I don't know if I'd go that far, but this situation is a colossal Charlie Foxtrot across the board in every way. Unless the PGA and the folks who run the four majors form a united front on policy toward the 54 rebels, as some have taken to calling them, this is going to continue to be the topic at every PGA Tour stop and every major the rest of the way, which detracts from the events themselves and the golfers playing in them. Oh, and as for Phil being a factor in the U.S. Open, recent history is any indication he won't make it to the weekend. In his last 4 U.S. Opens, he's finished tied for 48th, tied for 52nd, missed the cut, tied for 62nd. And not since 2013 has he been in reasonable contention at the one major that keeps him from having the career Grand Slam. Best thing for the U.S. Open, honestly, guys, would be for Lefty to shoot 78 on Thursday, 74 on Friday, and miss the cut. I give a hat tip to the Athletics' Hugh Kellenberger. Those are his scores. That would allow Saturday and Sunday to be spent focused on where it should be, on those atop the leaderboard. Brooks Koepka, not known for being a shy and quiet guy, nailed it at Tuesday's U.S. Open presser, and here's the quote. I'm trying to focus on the U.S. Open, man. I legitimately don't get it. I'm tired of the conversations. I'm tired of all this stuff. Like I said, y'all are throwing a black cloud on the U.S. Open. I think that sucks. As a sports media person, I understand why this is all the press seems to want to talk about. But if I never read another 54 story in The Athletic, again, it'll be too soon. And I hope that the next time it takes up airspace on this show is when we're talking about it epically failing and being confined to the dustbin of golf history. Here endeth my...
By the way, it is the LIV Tour. It is in reference to 54, but it is called the LIV Tour, although I want you to call it 54 because it makes more sense at that point.
And part of it is me being a little bit of a prick.
Yeah, you could be a prick. That's fine. By the way, ironically enough, Brooks Koepka's younger brother, who's not as talented, Chase Koepka, is part of said LIV Tour. By the way, I agree. By the way, that I hope that there's a lot more people. By the way, that probably won't make it to the weekend, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of these names were possibly contending, especially since there's some weird foreign multi-time winners. Well, we'll talk about this in a second. Anthony, what's your opinions on the 54-40 fight club or whatever we're going to call it as being big?
I'm talking about the Roman numeral tour because I don't know what to call it, LIV or 54 or just to not care about either about it regardless. But it's all about the money. I think that's pretty much it. And Rabbi, you and I, all Western fans, we criticize Vince McMahon and all Western entertainment nonstop for taking the Saudi money and having this deal where they have one or two events in Saudi Arabia, and it's kind of, and we know it's just a whitewash cover up for some of the inhumane things that the Saudis have done, and obviously the accusations are there. But it's not about the money. Think about Ferguson getting $200 million to join this tour. Dustin Johnson getting $150 million. I think his current earnings on PGA Tour is $78 million. So basically, he doubled his earnings in basically a week to sign on this tour. The thing is though with the PGA is they have to be a little concerned because they have to worry about if Dustin Johnson, who is a major winner and a big name, can jump ship. Who else can jump for the PGA to this new tour that just because the Saudi's back has a limited source of financial income. So I think that's one thing PGA has to worry about. Also, the fact that even a PGA event, that this new tournament is kind of, at least for the time being, kind of taking up the conversation a little bit. So it's definitely something PGA has to worry about. This new tour doesn't have a TV deal whatsoever. I think they're not yet anyway. So there are some things I think the PGA should consider themselves where if any more big days are jump over. Excuse me. But other than that, I don't know. It seems like right now a very glorified exhibition tour, but it's because of the names that's involved that's really getting most of the attention. And I was glad about you guys about Phil Mickelson a few weeks ago, and he's pretty much proving you right, pretty much, and saying one thing about the stories and pretty much taking their money in the process. So I'm like this. I want to see what's going to happen maybe in the next 6-7 months. I know obviously things are new that comes out, gets a lot of the attention about the game, but let's see how it plays out in a year and now, particularly when the Masters come around. And obviously the suspensions doesn't keep these golfers out of the 4 major tournaments. And we all know the Masters is like the real big headliner for the PGA. I think the last thing they will want is to have this tournament and some of the golfers that's involved kind of taking a lot of the attention away from what is basically the grand weekend as far as not just great golf, but great television, great TV ratings, particularly if Tiger Woods is involved. We've seen those TV bumps towards the Saturday and obviously the final round when he's involved. So those are things. So yeah, the PGA should be a little concerned. Right now, it's just because of the buzz and the fan feel that this new golf tour is picking up.
Not really any
for me,
Rabbi,
go ahead. Will be if, since the U.S. Open is going to allow these suspended players to play, if the British Open, which is the next major up, if they decide to uphold the suspensions and not let them play, that's really going to put the Masters in the spotlight to like, which way will they go? Will they side with the U.S. Open or will they side with the British Open? And that's going to be the pivotal point in terms of there's no pivotal point whatsoever, because the European Tour does not have the same rules as the PGA Tour does. They're letting them play, which is why you see a little more of a European influence on there. I wasn't aware of that. The only group that has any possible bearing towards this is the PGA Championship, although that might be controlled by a separate company. I'm not 100% sure. It is. None of the 4 majors are controlled by the PGA Tour. So the real question is going to be, they're probably not going to have enough time to put the pressure on the British Open. The question is, what will happen with the Masters next year? The LIV Tour exists. It's only an 8-thing tour. They're paying these players extravagant, stupid amounts of money, and and honestly, it seems like a thing that will fail pretty quickly. Yes, if you need names to bring it up, but you don't have a TV deal. I think you might have the Zone or something that just might have picked it up. Still, YouTube only really the biggest media. YouTube and Facebook, but that's not a TV deal. That's streaming only. Yeah. So you don't have anything. You don't really have anything yet. And there are good players on this tour, but you know what? When push comes to shove, you're still. It's really all about the majors in golf. Let's be fair. There are places. There are the Players Championship. There is a couple of events throughout the year. When you get to the final weeks, you'll get a little more of buzz, but golf has a niche, and that's why this is where it is right now, with people not really respecting the PGA's tour being something where you can make the most amount of money. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. But I do want to leave you with this. You see what Rory McIlroy did when he won on Sunday, basically saying, hey, I just won my 21st PGA Tour, one more than that guy, and that guy being Greg Norman, the CEO of LIV Golf, who is a disgusting human. It was a disgusting human who, of course, doesn't care about majors because he doesn't really win them. He's only won one in his entire life, and literally sabotaged the press conference with Mickelson, which wasn't going too well,
on the last day of the LIV Tour, which again, we placed 54 holes instead of 72, because they're dumb. But they
and all the golfers start at the same time on different holes, which makes
it's a shotgun thing.
sense.
It's kind of, I hate to say it because I actually agree with it. It's kind of like the XFL of golf. I mean, but it's something that wants to compete instead of helping out golf. And I think when it comes down to it, this isn't going to work. This will not be a story in too much more time. And the only reason why this is a story this week is just really the timing of the two tours. There will be somebody, I will guarantee you, from that LIV Tour, whether it be a Reed, whether it be a Johnson, who will be in contention in the weekend. It won't be Phil Mickelson, who's 51 years old. But we'll see. This will be that is the one thing that the PGA Tour would not want. But I do agree. I do like the way that they've handled this, because you're in or you're out. And a lot of these people are respectfully out. And guess what? Once the tour fails, you're going to have nowhere to go. All right, let's move on. The NBA Finals are reaching an exciting, huffing, winding finish to the season. After a Game 4 win where Golden State Warriors star Stephen Curry did almost everything, scoring 43 points, and a Game 5 win where Golden State Warriors star Stephen Curry did almost nothing, not hitting a three for the first time in his entire playoff career, the Golden State Warriors give the Boston Celtics back-to-back losses for the first time this postseason, and tomorrow they could win title number 4 in franchise history. But Anthony, there's a team on the other side that's looking for title number 18. So as the Celtics will host Game 6, what can they do to get back to Golden State / San Francisco / whatever and get those back-to-back wins for title number 18 for the Celtics?
Well, it comes down to Jason Tatum. I think that's pretty obvious. He's had a postseason to remember, and he's for the most part, it's had NBA Finals to forget. Think about this. He's shooting 34%. Just barely 34%. That's actually the NBA record for the lowest field goal percentage for anyone playing at least 20 minutes. Let me see. 20 for the worst field goal with a minimum of 20 field goal attempts per game. So you got those numbers. In Game 1, it was 3 for 17. Game 2, 8 for 19. Game 3, 9 for 23. Game 4, 8 for 23. The first 4 games, he shot 28 for 82 in this series. That is dreadful. And you think about this in Game 2. Game 2, he actually played well. He had 28 points. And Boston's blown out. Game 5, he actually played well. And shot the ball 50% of both times. I believe since the conference final against Miami. But here's another stat with Jason Tatum. 95. And that is the amount of turnovers Jason Tatum has in this postseason, which is an NBA record, FYI. He's been phenomenal. I think he's a star without question. But the struggles he has had, and credit to the Warriors defense, particularly Andrew Wiggins, by the way, who has held him to 5 of 15 shooting.
5 of 21.
One.
Yeah, but he's going to him one-on-one in this series. So the Warriors defense has done a phenomenal job of making things tough for Jason Tatum, but Tatum hasn't done himself any favors. He's sometimes settling for bad shots, trying to force the action. He's throwing the ball over quite a bit. It's almost as if he needs to slow down a little bit if the game comes to him, just a little bit. But the Celtics need him to be a lot better than he's been in this series. And they want to at least force a Game 7 back in San Francisco this weekend.
And put your earbuds in, dude.
Yeah, and you might want to put your earbuds in now. Jay, let's talk about the Golden State Warriors one win away from a title again. How do they close this out?
Honestly, it's all about Andrew Wiggins, Game 6, Clay, and the rest of the crew needing to support Steph Curry. I mean, we all know that the championship trio of Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and what they mean to the Golden State franchise, both on the court and off. But in the Warriors' run to the finals, the emergence of Andrew Wiggins as a true two-way player has been the X factor that has the Dubs on the brink of that fourth title in 8 years. He's leading the team in minutes per game at 38.4. He's averaged 42.1 over the last 3. He leads them in rebounds, a little over 9, and blocks a little over 1 at 1.2. He's second in scoring behind Curry at 18.4 per game. He's put up a double-double in the last 2 games, 17 and 16 in game 4, 26 and 13 in game 5. And his defense on Jason Tatum, as Anthony said, is a huge reason the Celtics star has struggled in that series, including the aforementioned 5 of 21 shooting in the fourth quarters in this series. But it wasn't just Wiggins. Honestly, who would be a lock for finals MVP in any other year, that stepped up in a game where, Rabbi, as you said, Steph Curry did absolutely nothing. He was very un-Steph-like. We saw game 6 Clay in game 5 as Thompson went for 21, including 5 of 11 beyond the arc, and provided some solid perimeter defense. We saw Jordan Poole channel his inner Vinny the Microwave Johnson. Look it up, kids. Putting up 14 points in 14 minutes, including that ridiculous bank shot from just over half court. We saw Gary Payton II put up 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals, and be an absolute pest, hounding the Celtics into several of their 18 turnovers. And we saw Green stuff the stat sheet, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and quarterback the Warriors' stingy defense as only he can when he is in full Draymond mode. In the past 2 games, the Celtics are shooting 30.4% from the floor, 7 of 23 against Green per NBA stats. The players taking those attempts normally shoot it at 49.3%. That's an almost 19% drop against Green. He also has 9 deflections, which is a stat that Golden State regularly charts, and 5 steals in these last 2 games, along with 17 rebounds. Look, the law of averages dictates that Steph is unlikely to go 7 of 22 from the floor and 0 for 9 from beyond the arc. Chances are he returns to form in game 6 and closes out this series with a performance that is finals MVP worthy. But even if he doesn't, if the rest of these guys, starting with Wiggins, play like they did in game 5, the Warriors will still be bringing the Larry O'Brien trophy back to the city by the bay.
And talking about Steph Curry, let me give you 2 stats for him really quick from my angle. Number 1, plus 15. Despite that terrible shooting performance we talked about on Monday, his plus minus was still the best on the Warriors and the best on the court. You have 2 choices when you're playing against Steph Curry, especially after what happened in game 4. You either put the squeeze on Steph Curry, basically give him 2 men at all times, make him feel uncomfortable, make him work on defense, and when they did, they almost targeted him too much, to the point that they had the sloppiest fourth quarter I think we could ever possibly see a team have. And then you have to deal with the rest of the consequences. And again, you can't even make the case anymore. Andrew Wiggins has been the second best player for the Warriors in this series, and it's not even close. The other stat I'd like to tell you about is this one. When Steph Curry has failed to make a 3 in his NBA career and then played the next game, would you like to guess what that percentage is?
His percentage from beyond the arc in the game following a game where he doesn't make a 3?
Yeah, tell me.
I'm going to say it's around 50%.
52.5%. 93 of 177. That's why Steve Kerr said, I like Steph coming into a game like this. And
yeah,
I don't remember. The Warriors on Monday went 9 for 40 from 3 and still won the game, because here's another number. I know you mentioned it, but the Celtics, it's not even a number. The Celtics just don't dribble. They can't dribble off of their left hand. They are they are talented enough to win a title. These are the 2 deepest teams in the playoffs, but fundamentally, both teams are ridiculously dumb with the ball. They're stupid. And they kind of represent what the 2022 playoffs have been. A lot of stupid, bad basketball. But as I've talked to Jay, the Warriors play the best beautiful brand of bad basketball out there. Yeah. And their bad basketball, their ugly basketball, kind of beautiful. So as much as I've seen Boston, and I appreciate how much they've done this year with a team that is very talented and is very hardworking, I I can't see unless the Celtics just put together one of these games. Logically, this series is over, and you actually get a Game 6 Clay in Game 6, which is when you should be getting Game 6 Clay. But we'll see what happens. This is a very, very interesting series, and just the fact that I don't want to ever say the line, these aren't your father's Golden State Warriors, but these aren't your father's Golden State Warriors. Clay is not Clay anymore. He's good, but not yet. But he's definitely two-way, not Clay. And offensively, he's still maybe 70-75% of what Clay is at his peak. Draymond looked shook in Boston. It was almost a non-factor, enough that Steve Kerr
It was a non-factor.
And benched him in Game 4 during that comeback. And Poole has been here and there. Honestly, the third most important player in this series is Peyton. Because when Peyton came back, it really changed the Golden State Warriors defensively.
Yeah.
The difference between this Golden State Warriors team and the Golden State Warriors team is deep. And this team has top 10 picks on the bench right now who aren't playing. Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody are going to be starts for that team. Not 100% sure about James Wiseman, but we can talk about that in the future. But I have a feeling that this team is going to be around as long as Steph Curry wants to stay.
Yeah. By the way, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you a little bit better.
Yeah.
All right. I want to say this. Both teams really need to stop complaining to the referees.
That's all basketball, though. That's not just them.
Yeah, but the fourth quarter, it was like the Celtics completely lost their focus between Marcus Smart getting an ill-timed technical foul. It was a lot of complaining, and it's like, look, you gotta play through it, play the game. The referee, the officiating in this series has been hit and miss at best. The Celtics in particular, they've got to play through it. Like, look, you can't fall for the Draymond antics. You got to play the game. The season's on the line tomorrow. I don't know what else to tell you, but you got to man up. I mean, the whining, it just
both teams.
Yeah, Rabbi, I will agree with Anthony on that, but I think we both know there were definitely a couple of instances where Steph got hammered putting up a three and no call was made. But I will tell you this, the interesting thing here, and you talk about Draymond and his shenanigans, but this is what I mean about Draymond being full Draymond mode, is I think the turning point, the thing that really, I think, showed that not only did Golden State have Boston, physically in the game, but they were in their heads. There's a timeout late in the game, and Jason Tatum was bringing the ball down towards his bench. And normally, sometimes you'll see, a star just kind of like throw a shot up just as you're walking away. Gary Payton and Draymond basically double teamed Tatum all the way back to the bench. They wouldn't even let him throw up that nothing shot. And Tatum just had to kind of stalk back to the bench and then hand it to the ref. I mean, you don't see teams do that, but that is the way things have been going.
Anthony, what does Mama Strait? Tell us what Mama Strait thinks about Draymond Green.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I can't say on the air.
Is it anything like the comments Draymond's own mom made in the previous game where he wasn't playing well?
No, I think Draymond's mom is just kind of sugarcoated because that's his mom. She loves him dearly.
Not like Draymond.
Miss Sharon, on the other hand, not so much.
Miss Sharon does not. From what me and Anthony talked about, Miss Sharon is not a Draymond Green fan. I, however, am a big Draymond Green fan, just because I love the way the man plays, and the man knows what he is doing almost all of the time, unless he's kicking somebody in the balls in 2016. All right, moving on. Let's go onwards to that chalice of Lord Stanley. After a pretty easy road to the Stanley Cup Finals, only losing twice, the Western Conference champion Colorado Avalanche are back in the Cup Finals for the first time in over 2 decades. Raymond Bourque, look it up, kids. And even though the Tampa Bay Lightning are back in the final stanza of the season for the 3rd season in a row, they did it the harder way. They went 7 games in round 1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, also coming back from 3-2 down and an OT in game 6, NBD. They also came back from 2-0 down in the conference finals against the New York Rangers. We'll talk about that in a second. And then in between, they just swept the President's Cup Trophy champs. No biggie. So now a 7-game series between a city who saw a title last in 2016, Denver Broncos, by the way, if you didn't know, and a city who's had 3 titles since then and is playing in their 5th title game or championship series since the pandemic. 5. Anyway, Jay, which Lightning player is your key to these finals? There's so many.
There is. Season when covering Tampa Bay, that while there's no denying the importance of Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough and the returning Braden Point, the player that the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champs are built around and gives them the biggest advantage over every opponent is their goalie. And if they're to three-peat, Andrei Vasilevskiy will need to keep playing at his series closeout level against one of the most prolific offenses in the NHL. He's 12-5 and he's 12-5 with a 2.27 goals against average and a .928 save percentage, along with 1 shutout in 17 postseason starts. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy as postseason MVP when the Lightning won the Cup in 2021, and he's in the running again for this postseason. In 98 career playoff games, 93 starts, he's 61-34, 2.24 goals against, .925 save percentage, and 7 shutouts. The guy just plays big when the stage is the biggest. What he's done in these 3 straight playoff runs is ridiculous. In 2020, he saved 14 goals above expected in 25 games with that .927 save percentage. In 2021, he topped that, saving 18 goals above expected in 23 games, .937 save percentage. And this year, so far, coming into game 1, he saved 10 goals above expected in 17 games, .928 save percentage, 3 straight postseasons where he saved over half a goal per game. Think about this. He's given up 8 goals in the team's last 8 wins, and in the past 8 series clinching wins, he's given up only 2 goals on 221 shots. That is an absolutely insane .991 save percentage. Also, in those 8 series clinching wins, he saved an unheard of 17 goals above expected. Yeah, he got off to a slow start in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Rangers. It took him the first 2 games, both losses, where he allowed 9 goals to shake off the rust from the long layout after the Lightning swept the Panthers. But in the last 4 games of that series, all wins, Vasilevskiy was back to being his usual self, allowing just 5 goals and only 1 at even strength. Do take standing on your head to a whole new level. If he manages to keep that level of play going against Colorado, then Tampa Bay will be skating around the ice, holding Lord Stanley's chalice for the 3rd straight year, and will be having the dynasty debate. He got off to a rough start, allowing 3 goals, including 1 on the power play in the first period, to the Avs on 15 shots, but he stoned them in the second, as Tampa Bay scored 2 goals in 48 seconds to tie game 1 at 3 apiece, which is where things currently are, and we're less than halfway through. We're actually more than halfway through the 3rd period, and he still has not allowed them to get one in behind him. Like, guys, we saw this movie against the Rangers, and we all know how that turned out. So it'll be interesting to see if this verse is same as the last one for Vasilevskiy.
A little bit of an encore. Anthony, we're going to take you away from the Eastern Conference and spare you the pain for a little bit of time. Let's talk about the Avs and their very, very, very historic run to getting finally to a Stanley Cup Finals. They've been the team who have been the next team up for a little while. What's going to get them over the hump in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, here's the story. The last time the Colorado Avalanche was in the Stanley Cup Final, they beat New Jersey Devils in 7 games. The next morning, I graduated from high school. So that tells you how long. That tells you how long ago it has been since Colorado's been at this stage of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But the guy I'm looking at is Nathan McKinnon, and we all saw the end-to-end goal, highlight reel goal that he performed early in the playoffs.
Game 5 against St. Louis, yes.
Yeah, just unbelievable the speed this guy has. But you look at it like this: he has 11 goals, 18 points in 14 games thus far. He's proving with that play, you saw that he can take over a game by himself. Those 2 periods and a half of tonight's game, very quiet, but we see with his speed and his playmaking ability, that could change the heartbeat. I mean, he had a 2-on-1 in the first period. Unfortunately, he kind of drifted too much to his right and caused his own team to be offside and wiped off an odd man rush early in the game. But outside that, he's been pretty quiet. His plus minus is 1. He's leading the team with 5 power play goals also in the playoffs. So I look at it like this: when you look at the Tampa Bay's defense, you look at a guy like Hedman and Ryan McDonough, and what their focus is going to be trying to slow him down. It's going to the way Tampa's defense sets up, particularly with the front checking and in the neutral zone, that his speed is very important, and kind of allowing Colorado to kind of play more up tempo and kind of get the speed. And the difference between the Avalanche as opposed to the Rangers with Tampa Bay dealt with is that Colorado has the size and they have the size to kind of get in front of Vasilevsky and cause some chaos in front of the net. So I think with Nate McKinnon and his ability to just kind of make things interesting, kind of speed the game up, I think it's going to be really key in this series with Colorado if they're going to win Lord Stanley's challenge. And that was my obligation to kind of get that out there.
Contractually obligated. You know, Anthony, you talk about graduating high school. The last time the Avs won the cup, their GM was their first line center in Joe Sakic. And you bring up an interesting point about McKinnon. He's going to be, for the most part, going against probably one of the best defensive lines in the NHL, which is Tampa Bay's third line, which is centered by Anthony Cirelli. And they've been solid. I believe that line has one of the 3 goals tonight. So
and we saw what happened when they was matched up with the Savannah-Jack line in the
exactly
the rest of and the line that happened at conference final series really took Savannah-Jack and Griner out of that series.
Yep, that's what they do. So I mean, you know, if Nathan McKinnon wants to really stake that claim as the best player in the NHL, he's gonna be attempting to do it against one of the best checking and defensive lines in the game. So that matchup right there is the game within the game in this series.
And you know what? And the thing too, I said this with Connor McDavid in the previous round of conference final. It's good to see a guy like McKinnon and some of these NHL stars that a lot of people have not been able to really see on a regular basis be on the national spotlight, just because I feel like now the NHL is getting that exposure that they needed to get the game, to grow the game, and get the names out there just a little bit. But McKinnon's, and by the way, Nikita Kucherov being on the other side of the ice to be a little motivation as well for McKinnon to try to prove that he's one of the best in the game.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, don't underestimate the absence of Nazem Kadri, the second line center for Colorado, because it was his line that did a lot of the damage against the Oilers, because the Oilers were so focused on stopping McKinnon's line. So the fact that second line is in pieces now without Kadri, will, you know, when his return will be a huge lift for the Avs, that they can get him back and get their line pairings back to the way it was in this series. If he returns, if he doesn't come back, that's going to be a huge loss for them and puts them, you know, at a bit of a disadvantage, I think, in this series, Rabbi.
I like how you're all saying and how it's amazing how long it's been since Colorado's been here. It's kind of funny. They've had 14 seasons of 90 plus or expected to be the last year over 90 plus points. So it's not like they've been a doormat. They just haven't gotten over the hump here. A lot of stuff you guys didn't mention, as usual, leaving me with nothing. But I would say I'm very interested to see the Cale Makar and Victor Hedman matchup to see what defenseman is really going to shine in this series, because I think that a lot of people have Makar as a guy who is going to possibly get Conn Smythe votes if they win this series. And Hedman has been one of the best defensemen in the league for years, so we'll figure out who the best real defenseman is on ice, with all respect to Adam Fox and all of the Rangers' great defensemen. These are the two right now who are the best, and the Lightning are the best. I've said it before. This is a team that is trying to prove that not too many teams not too many dynasties in sports history get to call the switch, the right to take a switch and turn it off when they see fit because they know they want to save themselves from the playoffs. The Lakers of the 2000s are definitely a prime example of this. The Warriors are kind of a prime example of this in the years after they won 73, having Kevin Durant winning 66. Give me a break. And they were also the 2 seed the next year. Give me another break. The Yankees of the 90s have that switch. So I'm very interested because the Lightning were a 3rd seed in their own division twice now and are fighting their way. And they were a 3rd seed in the East when they won the Stanley Cup. So they are really becoming not the team that was a President's Trophy winner who got swept in 4 games. They're becoming the team that is literally breaking the rules to get to the playoffs. They are literally benching people to keep them warm for the playoffs because they know that the end result is the playoffs, and they're the team that's doing it. And that's why this is the dynasty question right here.
And Rabbi, I think our pal Sean Roman had without even attempting to, I think he had the solution to prevent the Tampa Bay Lightning from, reaching the Stanley Cup Finals once again next year. Don't have them play a New York team in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I think it would be. I think it would be even worse in that situation at this point.
But one thing I would give Tampa Bay credit though, and that in the conference finals, even against Toronto in round 1, they never seemed phased or buckled by the pressure when they were behind the series. I mean, they were down 3-2 against Toronto and had to win a game 7 on the road. And I've been in that building before. Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. It's a arena. It's a madhouse.
Yeah.
And obviously far behind 2-0 against a Ranger team that was red hot and coming off it really one of the upsets in the playoffs and what they did to Carolina in game 7 on the road. But they never get too high, they never get too low about themselves. They just remain poised, they know the task at hand. And that's the leadership and the championship experience that has come these last few years. They know they've been there, they know what they need to do. They fell behind 2 goals tonight, and within 48 seconds, we're tied.
2 goals in
guys, we have to move on, but I do have to say that one thing that the Lightning really do well is they rehabilitate the fan bases. Toronto, we're finally going to get a playoff series win. No, you're not. The Panthers, we're back and we're really going to compete with the Lightning. No, you're not. And the Rangers, we might have finally had the answer to. No, you're not. Speaking of, finally tonight, let me set the scene. The year is 2015. The Rangers just lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning in a heartbreaking series. Remember, they lost that game 7 at home. The future was bright, though. They had 3 times in the Final Four in 4 seasons. They were going to always get back there. The next 6 seasons after, the Rangers would get a grand total of 1 playoff series after that. 1. So we're here to make sure that doesn't happen again. Let's post-mortem the Rangers off season after a 2-0 series lead that turned into the 4-2 series loss in the span of 6 days against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jay, positive me with the thing that needs to continue that's right for the Blue Shirts into next year.
Yeah, I mean, my positive takeaway, from the postseason that I hope that kind of rolls over is the development of the kid line. They didn't get put together until late in the regular season, but they really stepped it up in the Rangers' run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Philip Heidel centering Alexis Lafreniere and Kaplan gave the Rangers a solid third line throughout the playoffs. Heidel tallied 7 goals and 2 assists for 9 points. Lafreniere also had 9 points, but his was in reverse, 2 goals, 7 assists. Kakko set up the series clincher against the Lightning, but put up 2 goals and 3 assists for the postseason. And while the spotlight was on the big 4 of Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin, and Adam Fox, and rightfully so, as your stars have to play like stars, the deeper you get into the Stanley Cup playoffs, the kid line gave the Rangers solid minutes in all 3 zones and were actually the team's best line in goals per 60 minutes at 4.26, and they were the only Ranger line in the top 20 in that stat for the entire postseason. The kid line found a groove early in the playoffs and was consistently pinning opponents in their own zone, battling along the boards and relentlessly pushing the puck into the offensive zone. The energy from their shifts seemed to get the Rangers' top 2 lines going when it was their turn on the ice. According to the New York Post, though, and this is interesting, was interesting to me when I discovered this, it seemed like Gerard Gallant, for some unnamed reason, wasn't crazy about putting these three kids, all of whom were younger than 23, together on the same line, but yet can't knock their production or their chemistry as a trio. I mean, Gallant did say that he does see Lafreniere and Kakko as players who could someday be top six forwards. I think the Rangers need to keep this trio together, and that'll start with getting Kakko's contract situation resolved. He's a restricted free agent this offseason after
unrestricted free agent. He's unrestricted. He's
sure?
unrestricted.
Red
Yeah,
restricted. So okay,
Yeah, you're wrong. Yeah, I'll look again to make sure that he's unrestricted.
Okay. He was mysteriously in street clothes for the finale against Tampa Bay, and Gallant refused to explain after the game why he was scratched, saying, quote, "I'm not going to talk about it. Tonight's not the time." Though he later stated that it was for hockey reasons. Way to be vague, coach. Will this negatively impact his contract talks? Who knows? But in my opinion, GM Chris Drury needs to keep the 2019 number 2 overall pick in Ranger Blue for the foreseeable future. He came back from missing 39 games with injuries, showed some of what he could become in these playoffs. A grinder in offensive zone possessions who also has a deft passing touch, setting up his line mates. Will that translate into him becoming a 60-point player? Who knows? But he certainly has the potential, especially when paired with a playmaker like Lafreniere and a goal scorer like Heidel. The kid line is the Rangers' future. Kreider's not going to be here forever. Neither will Zibanejad. And they need to start maximizing the skill sets and potential that these youngsters have so that when it comes time to pass the torch, the kid line will be ready to become the line.
You were right. It was restricted. And there's actually something that's very funny about that. Larry Brooks, obviously, you know him, he's a New York Post writer, compared the situation between that and former Montreal forward Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who was scratched unexpectedly for the last 2 games of the Stanley Cup Finals. He signed an offer with the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Canadians took the compensatory picks, kept the cannoli, and matched the offer. So the signs are there. Anthony, all right, get negative.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. It's been a tough week. Let's make it more negative by giving me one of those for New York.
Okay, well, first off, I like to thank Sean Madonna and wait for Robert for at least giving the Rangers a shout out during game 1 tonight, at least talking about their team on the rise. They could be back in the situation next year, but who knows. But I said before the playoffs started, even before the Penguins series, that the Rangers 5-on-5 play was a concern, and it turned out to be their undoing in the postseason. I mean, when they were on the power play, they really struggled to generate any kind of offense whatsoever. Among the 16 teams in the playoffs, they were ranked dead last in most 5-on-5 metrics, from scoring chances, expected goal shares, shots, chances against. Among the playoff teams, at the end, 5-on-5 goal differential, they were 12 out of 16. So they really struggled with that. And it tells you just how good Igor Shesterkin was on most nights when he really didn't get any kind of scoring help from his offense. But here's some more stats to kind of throw out there. In 20 playoff games, the Rangers had just 39% of their expected goals during 5-on-5 play, 41% scoring chance share, and a 34% high danger scoring chance share. Basically, they spent a lot of time playing from their end of the ice. And I said that numerous times throughout this postseason run, that the Rangers playing too much on their heels a little bit. But here's some more stats to throw out there. Among the previous the last 10 postseasons, we're talking about 40 conference finalists in those 10 years. The Rangers, as far as 5-on-5 offense, 39th in shot attempts, 40th in expected goal shares, 40th in expected goals against post 60 minutes, high danger scoring chances post 60, high scoring chances, high danger scoring chance share, the 40th. And this is about 40 teams that have played in the conference final in the last 10 years. Let's go back to 2012, including the 2012 Rangers, who lost their double in 6 games. in the last 4 games against Tampa Bay and the Tampa Bay Lightning, they were outscored 8-1 during 5-on-5 play. And the Igor Shesterkin literally did everything he could to keep the Rangers in games 5 and 6. In game 5, in that third period, and Rabbi, I was actually talking to you during that game. If the Rangers didn't score in the first 10 minutes, you can see that team pressing and trying to get games going. It was like plays, even wide open opportunities that you saw the Rangers get throughout the postseason. Suddenly, just a slight bounce of the puck, going errant, a bad pass. Everything just started to tighten up, and you saw it play out before your very eyes. That game 5 and then that game 6. Even when they tied the game and Tampa Bay came right back, you felt like there's no way the Rangers get any kind of offense to get a power play. And Tampa Bay said Craig was very disciplined throughout the rest of that series and kept themselves out of the penalty box, which is funny because they put themselves in a power play in a short man situation of an ill-advised delay of game tonight. But the Rangers, if they can figure out a way to generate more offense when it's even strength and be able to have the same kind of efficiency with their special teams, the Rangers could be a really good, dangerous team. And look, they're a young team. I mean, I think that's the difference between this team and the 2015 version that lost to Tampa Bay. Whereas that team was full of veteran players, whereas you didn't know where the ceiling was going, and they were coming off a Stanley Cup final appearance the previous year. In this case, it's the first playoff appearance in some time, and it's the youngest team in hockey. Kind of grew up before our very eyes. So there's a lot to be positive about. But unfortunately, the one negative is why the Rangers is at home tonight instead of playing either tonight or waiting for Saturday for game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final.
Yep.
Yeah, they would have waited for Saturday for that game. You both said it perfectly. I will say this about what the Rangers need to do for the offseason. They have not a lot of decisions to make. Obviously, the Kakko one is a very important one. And Gallant said in his media day, he did say it was a purely hockey decision and he still loves the guy. So you have to try to not cut the knees off of Chris Drury whenever you can. They don't have a lot of youth in their farm system, although they do have a lot of youth in the team. So that's a little bit of a problem. And they need to find out who the second center is going to be. You know, Mika is going to be number 1, but the question is, do you put Rooney in there? Do you put Strobe in there? Or do you put Andrew Kopp, a guy who gave a lot away to get from the Winnipeg Jets? So very curious to see it. You'll have a lot of experience coming from this run because Mika's been a Jet, never really been that far in postseason. Now, Tammy Panarin, never really been that far as the main guy in the postseason. He was there for the early days of Chicago, and Kreider in the same way. So, as I said at the beginning, this could be the beginning of a nice run. But remember, you're in a division that every single year you're going to be fighting with the 3 other teams that made it with you to the playoffs this year. Carolina's not going anywhere anytime soon. They'll have their goalie back next year. Ovechkin is still Ovechkin, and Washington is still a lot of good players. And Pittsburgh, they're still not done yet. And then, of course, you have the Islanders, who, after what they did at the end of the last 2 seasons, and all the stuff that they went through this season, who the hell knows? And hell, Philadelphia is about to get John Tortorella to be their head coach. So you got to do everything just to stay relevant in that division. You probably have to be a 95 to 100 point team.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I would say this too. And we just talked about Colorado being back in the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in over 20 years, but being so good as far as a regular season team, it kind of show you that these postseason runs can't be taken for granted because we saw it just so hard to get to this point, to get to the playoff. And when you're in the toughest division, like the Rangers are, you it's almost like you can't take a night off because 95 points may not even be enough to get one of the wild card spots. I mean, think about this. The Eastern Conference was a juggernaut this year. And the fact that the Rangers got over 100 points and still finished second in their own division just tell you that for much praise that we want to heap on this team, it's a long way to go. It's a long grind. And when October comes around, it's a journey. And the Rangers are going to have to take this experience and find a way to build on it, because it's going to be a long road trying to get back to, never mind the conference final, just get back to the postseason entirely to even try to go on another run.
Okay, guys, before we go tonight, let me ask you some hypothetical questions before we get if Draymond Green was ever in trouble or went missing for several games, would that be a story that would be leading the national news headlines all the time? Yes.
Maybe.
It would get attention, and it would lead ESPN probably every single night. If Dak Prescott all of a sudden got detained in Mexico over a stupid little gram of possession charge, would that be a story that we would be talking about on the news cycle?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the fact that one of the best WNBA players in the history of this game, and a woman who's won Olympic medals, has just been extended in detention in Russia for a third time, and now is at least extended till July 2nd. And spoiler alert, in Russia, and by the way, in Russia, after having vape cartridges, having hash oil in her luggage, not going with the decision whatsoever. It wasn't the greatest move in the world. But the fact that this happened before the All-Star break, before Super Bowl 56, or as I call it, LIV, was going on, the fact that all of this happened back in mid-February, and that Brittney Griner is still detained in Russia today because she had to play basketball in the offseason over there. They get paid more money than they do over here. And now all of a sudden, the woman is now completely wrongfully detained in Russia and has been classified as wrongly detained for over a month and a half. Now, the rumors of her being traded for a Russian man who has a lot of secrets, that I didn't think that was going to happen whatsoever. You don't do a one-for-one trade like that. That's not really the greatest thing to go. But the fact is that this is still going on, and that the US government is still trying to make their way to get this moving in the right direction is ridiculous. This is not happening anytime soon. Her release hasn't been expedited anytime soon. Moscow will not now consider using Griner in any detainee swap until a court investigation into her case has been completed. And this is just ridiculous in a lot of ways. Yes, you could face up to 10 years in prison for what you're doing with the hash oil. And yes, again, she did not make the right decision. But guess what? This is something that would be considered, in most cases, something that you would wait a year for and then have a trial. And you certainly would not be detained in a place over, I wouldn't say something that's petty, but something that's to a point where it's almost ridiculous. Get her out of Russia under any means necessary, WNBA. You don't pay your players enough to go through this stuff. Why are you going to pay your players nothing to go through something like this again and again and again? We're almost up to 6 months.
I'll tell you this, I followed this story. Think about it. Because officials found hashish oil in her luggage when she was attempting to board her flight to come home in the States. That's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
You would serve what? Max, you'd serve what? 6 months in jail. Chances are, if it's your first offense, it's a suspended sentence. Or you get, something else goes on there. But, the fact that she's being held for something that we look at as being a minor transgression, and she's being treated as if she was, a CIA spy that had been caught trying to take, Russian state secrets out of the country is, to me, it's unconscionable, but it's par for the course with the way things are going in the Soviet Union these days. And I think this would have been resolved a long time ago if what's happening in Ukraine was not happening, and because that's part of U.S. foreign policy and the way they're dealing with the Russian government. They're playing a little bit with one hand tied behind their back because of this, to a certain extent, whether they admit it or not. She's being treated like a political prisoner, which to me is ridiculous. I will tell you this. I will be absolutely gobsmacked if any WNBA player elects to play overseas in Russia anytime soon. The money may be great and the basketball is good, don't get me wrong, but if you were going to run the risk of something like this, I can't see any. Nice to know, Alexa, thank you. I can't see any WNBA player ever setting foot in Russia ever again. So hopefully the US, the State Department is all in on this, and hopefully they'll be able to get this resolved sooner rather than later. The fact that it took this long for the State Department to classify her as a wrongfully detained person, to me, I don't understand why it took this long for them to do that. That should have been done like this, because because to me, it's that minor of an offense. It should have been done at the jump. And the fact that it's taking this long, unfortunately, that's just a byproduct of the current state of affairs in terms of diplomatic relations between the U.S. And Russia. And it's unfortunate that she's become a pawn in this larger geopolitical game.
Almost 3 months, Anthony. 3 months before she even got classified.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and the fact that you see players walking, with Brittney Griner t-shirts on, and it's like, do we really have to be wearing t-shirts to know that a young lady is being pretty much held as a political prisoner? In a situation where, obviously the what's going on in Ukraine has had a lot to do with it, but it's pretty clear that she's been wrongfully detained from day one. But I want to bring attention to the WNBA for a second, because it's like, you're not paid. This is part of the problem here. You're not paying your players enough, so they don't have to go and play overseas during the off season to make ends meet, or to make more money, because the money's even better over there compared to here. We're talking about a league that don't even want to allow teams to have charter flights for the players. Think about, like, we had a situation with the Washington Mystics where a couple players tested positive for COVID, or because they had to be on a commercial flight, they had to be on a flight coach, and it's ridiculous what's going on with the WNBA as far as what they're not doing for the players. It's like, look, I love Becky Hammond. I think she's one of the greatest players, and I enjoy it as a player. But when you have a head coach making more money than the max player in the WNBA, which I think is Jon Stewart, there's something wrong with this with the economics with this league. And this is the NBA sister league. The WNBA has been around longer than the NBDL, but the NBDL, obviously, because it's been part of a player development for the NBA itself, it seems like it's gotten more care and attention and money, for that matter, than the league that has been around since 1997. It was supposed to be the symbolism of progression and equality in this country. Yeah. And it just says a great deal that, remember a couple of years ago with the WNBA bubble and the food and everything that went wrong with that situation. It just says that the WNBA is completely dropped the ball on this, but the NBA, being the parent company, has definitely missed this mark, and something needs to be done completely because, look, I would be, like I said, I agree with Jay. I would be shocked if anyone would want to play over in Russia again, despite what the money entails, but also just in general, going overseas and being away from family, and something like this could possibly happen to any one of them. And you think about how the WNBA had to literally get their players almost immediately when the situation in Ukraine broke out to try to get them home. And this is something that when you are even a student abroad, that something like this could possibly happen. And it's the worst nightmare you could think of when you're involved, whether it's a family, whether it's friends. It is like everything about this whole situation around Brittney Griner is wrong. It's just, you can pick and choose where the failure is at. It was at this, obviously the government level, Department of Defense, whatever. And it's been a failure on this young lady, and they gotta do something to bring her home because this is just 6 months. It's ridiculous. This is just this is unbelievable what we're going through right now.
Wait till you see what Wait till you see what I rant about next week. By the way, we talked all that time.
By the way,
the Avalanche have already scored 1 minute and 28 seconds into the OT. So that series is 1-0. So as you guys said, as we always say, there's no quit in New York. But since the Rangers got eliminated, what the hell does that mean for us? This show is quitting for the night. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I'm Steven Rabinowitz. The socials are as follows: Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines to watch this show live. YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines to watch this show on demand. And
at ONTH Sportslines is our Twitter handle, where you will find the link to this show, as well as other interesting tidbits in sports that we think you should take a look at, pay attention to, and get educated on.
By the way, the highest salary for a WNBA player right now is $228,094. That's 4 times less than what Becky Hammond makes. So it's not just less.
Wow.
It's extremely less. In fact, Liz Kinbage actually tweeted about that. But I'm not even going to mention that, or almost mention all the stuff I forgot during the show. I'm just going to say good night.
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.